Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Access to Justice Commission. I am the chair of the commission, and we have, I believe, almost all our entire membership of the commission today. There are a couple of announcements and introductions that I would like to make. First, I want to introduce you to Lauren Orlowski, who has taken over for Stacy Franklin. And as you can see, is already hit the ground running, is doing a tremendous job. Lauren is a case flow coordinator in Wethersfield. As you know, our commission is staffed by a member of the judicial branch, but Lauren has a very full-time job in addition to her work on Access to Justice Commission. And so I thank the branch for providing us a staff member, and specifically thank Lauren for her willingness to work on our commission and to be our staff member. And I would like us all to welcome Lauren. I can tell you just in my short few weeks of working with her, she's got it all together, and we're in great hands. So thank you. I also would like to welcome a couple of non-members who are present with us. As you know, our commission meetings are streamed live on YouTube, and they are open to the public. Members of the public who are not members of the commission are welcome to attend, but I remind those individuals that they cannot address the commission or speak during the meeting. We do, however, have two presenters that we have invited as a commission to present to us, and we welcome them. They are Dr. Elizabeth Thayer, who's a licensed psychologist at Beacon Behavioral Services, and attorney Jill Bix. Both of these individuals are experts on the practice of collaborative family law model, and the work group on modest and moderate means has invited them and requested that they give us a presentation. So we welcome them. We will hear their presentation really as the first item of business on our agenda, and we welcome them to stay on after their presentation and the Q&A section ends. We welcome you to stay on. We would love that. Of course, remind everyone that if you're not a member, you're not able to address the commission. I also would like to note for the record that at least one individual, not a member of the commission, is present, and I want to welcome her, and that's Natalie Wagner, who's the executive director of the Connecticut Bar Foundation, and has always shown an interest in our commission, and I welcome her to our meeting. I do have one additional update before we go to the minutes and then to the substance of the meeting, and that is that I would like to provide you an update on what's happening with the Massachusetts Access to Justice Commission. Some of you know, I know Judge Bright, Judge Moll, Krista Hess, and Ty Erickson worked closely with, as did I, with folks from the Massachusetts Access to Justice Commission, and particularly Susan Feiningen, who is a partner. She is a pro bono partner at Mintz Levin. She's been with the Massachusetts Commission for over 10 years, and she's stepping down. She emailed us. She wanted me to specifically thank Judge Bright, Judge Moll, former Chief Justice Rogers, and Krista Hess, who for the work they did collaboratively. She emailed me and copied everyone who is now currently on their commission, and I just want to give you a quick update. Justice George is an associate justice on their Supreme Court. He will be heading up the commission with Mary Jane Benner Brown, who's been a long-standing member of the commission, and she does lateral hiring for the law firm of Ropes and Gray. Laura Gall, who is a commissioner and a commission consultant who also works for the Family Law Unit at Greater Boston Legal Services, and Carolyn Goodwin, who is the commission's director, and Chip Finney is the deputy legal counsel at the court who works with the commission. So she introduced us, and we are committed to continuing our work collaboratively. We hope to meet sometime in the fall. just to give you a little bit of an overview, I know they've come here and relied on Krista and Judge Bright and to look over our court service center and borrow those ideas from us. From them, we got ideas on how to run the limited scope representation. And also, I know Judge Mull, who's also on the meeting and chairs the appellate pro bono work group, has worked with them on their appellate pro bono system, and to see, what areas we can share ideas, and we lean on each other, and it's been a great working relationship. I will miss Susan terribly. She's an incredible advocate for access to justice. So it is a loss. And as you know, we lost Judge Gantz, who was the chief of the commission and worked closely with Susan. She stayed on an extra year. He died unexpectedly a little over a year ago. And so she stayed on, and I'm sure they're grateful. So they're looking forward to working with us, and I wanted to share that with you and to publicly thank Susan and their commission for all the help they've given us over the years and for our strong working relationship. With that, I think I've covered all the introductions. Lauren, straighten me out if I've missed anything.
Looks like you've covered it all.
Krista. Okay. So before we get to the substance of our meeting, I would ask for those who were present or not at the previous meeting for the review and approval of the minutes of our last meeting, March 11, 2021. Is there a motion? Chris
So
Nelson moves.
To approve the minutes.
Second. Second
I'll
motion.
Second.
Judge, thank you, Judge Bright seconds the motion. Any discussion on the minutes? You should all have received them ahead of time. Either raise your virtual hand or real hand. Seeing none, I will ask, let me start because this is a virtual meeting. Are there any objections to approval of the minutes? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Thank you all. And again, thank you, Lauren, for doing all of this work. Next on the agenda, we will hear from the first group. We typically hear reports from each of the work groups. The first work group to go is the Modest and Moderate Means and Access to Justice work group, and we have a 20-minute presentation by our guest speakers, and I'm going to turn it over to either Attorney Ferranti, although she is in transit and may not be able to join us, she said, and if she can't, one of the chairs of that work group, Attorney Nelson, I believe has agreed to do the introductions and any brief report from their work group. Is that correct, Attorney Nelson?
That's correct, Your Honor. Attorney Ferranti is, as you said, in transit and unfortunately cannot be here. She may be able to log in a little later. And my co-chair, Judge Diana, is on vacation and cannot be here. We have nothing substantive to report aside from the presentation today. As Justice Khan indicated, the Modest and Moderate Means Work Group is presenting to the Commission on the practice of collaborative family law and its relationship to the access to justice. As Judge Diana has highlighted previously to the Commission, this model is gaining a lot of traction in our state and also at the national level. It allows parties to hopefully avoid litigation and access alternative dispute resolution. It's a team-based approach to resolving family conflicts that involves simultaneous engagement of mental health, financial, and legal professionals at the beginning of the process, and has been most frequently utilized by financially secure clients. The model is now being piloted at the Children's Law Center in Hartford. However, for lower and moderate income individuals, expansion into Bridgeport is being explored. There are several initiatives underway designed to broaden awareness and use and uniform implementation of this model, including an initiative to adopt the Uniform Collaborative Law Act or rules in Connecticut, and the development of a law school curriculum and clinical programs. Today, our work group is proud to present two speakers, Dr. Elizabeth Thayer and attorney Jill Bix, who will give an overview of the process and how we believe it can increase access to justice. They are both experts in the model and have longstanding commitments to access to justice. I'm going to give some brief background on both of them, but their resumes are both extensive, and if I went into detail, we would use our whole 20-minute slot, I'm afraid. But Dr. Thayer is a licensed psychologist at Beacon Behavioral Sciences in West Hartford. She received her BA from Goucher College, her master's from Harvard University, and her PhD from the University of Rhode Island. She has also completed postdoctoral training at the Devereaux Foundation. She is trained in mediation and collaborative divorce and has many years of interdisciplinary experience as a mental health collaborative divorce coach. She's the past co-president of the Collaborative Divorce Group of Connecticut, a co-chair of the International Academy of Divorce Professionals Trainers Committee, and co-chair of the Access to Collaborative Committee of the International Academy of Divorce Professionals. She is a trainer in the Connecticut Collaborative Training Group and has trained numerous lawyers, mental health professionals, and financial professionals in Connecticut, across the United States, and internationally. She is dedicated to promoting and developing access to collaborative divorce for all clients. She's working with the staff of the Children's Law Center in Hartford, designing and implementing an inclusive access to collaborative program for clients regardless of income level. The name of that program is Rebuilding Families. An attorney, Jill Bix, began her career handling complex litigation in New York, and then after taking on pro bono representation of victims of domestic violence, transitioned her practice to a matrimonial practice in New York, and after moving to Connecticut, worked with a program in Stamford Superior Court, and then founded and became executive director of the Children Advocates of Southwestern Connecticut. She's also worked as a consultant on the HBO hit show series Divorce, starring Sarah Jessica Parker. Prior to forming her private practice, Attorney Bix was a member in the family law group at Pullman and Comley. Attorney Bix is an active member in numerous local groups. She currently serves on the board of the statewide Connecticut Council for Non-Adversarial Divorce and is on a special task force to incorporate collaborative divorce processes into Connecticut's law and rules of practice. I could go on with both of their resumes extensively, as I said, but we are very appreciative of their time and their experience in this. And with that, I will turn over the presentation to them.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to start and be very mindful of your time. We are so appreciative to Justice Kahn and Judge Diana and Attorney Ferrante for giving us the opportunity to present to you today. I was trained by Liza Thayer. She is by far and away one of the most experienced practitioners of collaborative divorce and just truly a resource for Connecticut in so many ways. So tipping my hat to Liza, I'm proud to be presenting here with her today. And it's an opportunity for us to speak to a wide variety of, people who are able to make change. Because to us, Liza and I both firmly believe that collaborative process is the way that families should be divorcing in one form or another. It's a practice that is relatively new, maybe 25 years old. And a lot of, clients and litigants and people who are needing this process or could benefit from it have never really heard from it. models that they've heard of are mediation, arbitration, and they have their place in the array of tools that are available to families. But those processes really started in the labor movement and are, available and good, but they are different. And the collaborative process kind of fills in a gap for families that need a little bit more support than mediation can offer, but still is focused on settlement and focused on not using the adversarial tools of litigation to actually divorce. We know that divorce might be the end of a marriage, but it's not really the end of the family. The family continues. It definitely continues because if there are children and grandchildren, it also requires many times continued relationships through financial orders that have to be carried out through the divorce. So we think of the collaborative process as helping families transition from an intact married family to a divorced family, and parents moving from, parents who live in the same household to co-parents. The collaborative process is there to support the family and begin giving them the tools and resources that they'll need during and possibly after the divorce. Mediation is not a process that can be utilized well if there are complex issues like mental health, substance abuse or addiction, domestic violence, or complexity in financial situations and unequal bargaining power. It can be, but it oftentimes does not have enough support. The collaborative process can be used in these, and with much success, in these more complex situations. And I'd like to, talk about that a little bit, because the public and many professionals are really confused by the name of the process, the collaborative process. It just connotes the idea that we all get along, kumbaya, that there's a high level of goodwill and cooperation between the spouses. But that's not true. And what I like to say when I'm talking to clients to educate them about this model is to say, collaborative is not an adjective describing a noun, a collaborative, nice process where we all get along. It's a noun, it's a process. It's not always nice and it's not always easy. But as Attorney Nelson said, it really represents a team approach to divorce, drawing on 3 professional disciplines: legal, financial, and emotional, and child development specialists. Each spouse in this model has a specially trained attorney, and they're joined by neutrals in the form of the coach and the financial professional. Those neutrals really are significant in keeping the clients focused on solution-oriented discussion, as well as problem solving. And attorneys, we're taught to zealously advocate for our clients. So sometimes we can, really benefit from the neutral perspective in the negotiations. But each of the team members has its own well-defined role. The attorneys assist with the legal education and advocacy. The financial professionals collect the data and assist with financial education and planning. And the coach, the mental health professional, facilitates the communication, which is what we know many times disrupts the negotiation process. And they also help, educate the clients about what their children need. The one distinguishing factor between this model and, say, a model which is more traditional, where the clients and the attorneys commit to resolving themselves out of court, is that this process has teeth in the form of a disqualification clause. And so If the process does not result in a resolution, which is rare, but it happens, and the clients decide they want to pursue litigation, the collaborative team, including the lawyers, are disqualified and can't represent them in litigation. I used to think, why do we need that? You know, we can still continue and focus on settlement. And I can tell you that I've tried it. I've tried not having that disqualification clause, and the tone, the framework is significantly different. So that disqualification clause is, in my view, the hallmark of the collaborative process. In addition, also very significant is that the professionals are specially trained in interest-based rather than positional bargaining. And again, the team of lawyer and mental health and financial professional keeps the parties focused on their problem solving and future oriented goals and interests rather than looking into the rearview mirror, which nobody can fix and can't be changed, and really is not productive in helping families move into, you know, their post-divorce phase. The model is actually very flexible and can be adapted to fit the unique needs of the family, with built-in efficiencies that make it especially good fit for families of modest means. Liza, oh, I'm past my time already. Liza's going to delve into that. I just want to talk 2 more points very quickly. The ethics of this have been questioned in some places, but I'm happy to say they've been vetted and approved. And it really fits within the concept of unbundled legal service, limited representation, limited scope representation that we have here in Connecticut. And I was going to give you some real life examples, and maybe I will at the end, but I'm going to turn this over to Liza right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Justice Kahn and this commission. We really are honored, and I love to have an opportunity to expand collaborative. So I'm going to expand on what Jill just talked about, which is the general process of collaborative, and try to bring it into why are we here in front of your Access Commission. And that is because that beautiful process of collaborative, the roadmap as we call it, doesn't fit all families. It's been mostly done out of private practice offices with a decent level of expense and a decent level of time commitment. So one size did not fit all. And we began to recognize that as everyone began to practice in the collaborative model. And we understood that families of lower means, families of different races, genders, disabilities, geography, needed something that was far more adaptable than the traditional model, which is certainly what we teach when we give people the basics, but we knew we had to go further. So the collaborative process, as it was originally conceived, had to adapt to all families. The overriding organization for collaborative is the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. I'm the co-chair of their Access Committee. So thus began a series of developing what we call access programs. And that was in response to trying to provide for families of different kinds of families and different levels of needs. One of the first programs that developed, of course, was in Canada, and in Ontario, Canada. Brian Galbraith, an attorney up there, developed a private practice model, but it was what we call streamlined. And I'll talk about that a little more. Flat fee, but a full team. So that became the beginning program. He shared all of his materials with everybody, but still, that was out of a private practice model. And even under Canadian dollars, is a lot more than a lot of families can afford to pay. From there, it went to the development of pro bono programs, which required also financial qualification, but at a different end of the scale. And then some programs that were that are flat fee and sliding scale, which is actually what we've got here in Connecticut. I'm going to go into that in a little more detail. We also now realize that a general prototype of collaborative also had to be questioned, and we need to really say, who's the family before us? What do they need? What do they have? And how do we design a process that is going to work for that particular family that comes in the door? I got started here in Connecticut through, I'm on the board at the Children's Law Center, and still on the board, Attorney Ogilvie of the Children's Law Center, who was there before, because you never get off the board of the Children's Law Center. And they have an LLC arm called Rebuilding Families. That's where we house this program. And we designed and Jill was on Attorney Bix was on the committee with me, and we designed a streamlined sliding fee, flat fee program with a full team. So it's based on the evaluation of assets, income, and debt for a net worth. And and believe me, we are constantly refining that. They're all over the country, there are different models, but that's how we got started. It's administrated by the Children's Law Center. So what we promise is that cases come into the Rebuilding Families program, and that the administrative work of the case is taken over, which is a great appeal to lowering the cost. For that, the program gets us really very small fee. We've trained over 50 professionals. Right now, the administrator of that program is Attorney Margaret Bozak, who's one of the lawyers at the Law Center, because we don't have an administrator for the program right now. And she and I trained 50 professionals or more who were mental health, financial, and legal professionals, which was really quite exciting. And clearly, there's a great interest in providing service. So let me just go very briefly through how this program works. A case is referred. It could be from lawyers. It could come directly into the program. The administrator contacts that couple, talks with them about what we can provide. We have to collect financial information in the beginning, and so that a flat fee is determined from them on that sliding scale. Then intake paperwork sent out, and they sign a contract with Rebuilding Families. They sign a contract with all the professionals involved. The mainstay of a program like this is a client and professional manual, which have a lot of information and a lot of homework for the couple. So we rely on them to partner with us to design a process that will work for their family, and also to do some of the work. But the administration at the Law Center will also provide the support. So for example, if someone doesn't have a computer, they can go there and use the computer. We've been doing them. This program started in the middle of COVID about a year ago. So we've been doing it on Zoom, which was a transition in and of itself. But now we can service people all over the state really very easily, and they don't have to take as much time off from work. So it's actually gotten more cost effective because of the online work. After the couple is enrolled in the program, the professionals meet, and we meet a number of times throughout the process to design the program, coordinate our efforts together, and a lot of the heavy lifting is done by the mental health professional and especially the financial professional in these cases. The large team meetings of collaborative are limited in these access programs, usually to about 2 if we can. Some of them have gone a little over that. There's obviously no court involvement, and it is a shorter process, and some can be pro bono or they're of low expense. I will tell you, I did the first case at the Law Center along with Jim Russell, who's a financial professional, Attorney Bozak, and Attorney Bob Katz. It was the most rewarding professional experience of my collaborative career. We had a young couple. It got a lot more complicated than we thought in the beginning. We had a little alcohol addiction thrown in and a little relocation in the middle of it, but We got through it we started in July and we were done in September. So, and they were so grateful and so willing to do their piece of it. So it absolutely can work, and we have that available here. Access programs got started because it's the right thing to do. It's the fair thing to do. It doesn't make sense to have something that's only available to families of means. And even for families of means, sometimes collaboratives can become quite expensive and time consuming. So we have professionals available. I hope to have more. We're going to try to do another training. We've got to get the word out to clients. We want to partner with community agencies. There's a program in Florida, for example, out of Nova University that partners with a veterans association. So their veterans get to have low cost or pro bono divorce, collaborative divorce through that program. There's another program in Pennsylvania that does a one-day model. And so there's a lot of opportunity. We need the public to understand what it is that can be provided for them, and then I would hope that most professionals would welcome the opportunity. Those who are newly trained can be mentored through this process, and those of us who are at the other end of our career, it's a great opportunity to continue to do this work. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand it back to Jill, who's going to talk about the Uniform Collaborative Practice Act. You're muted, Jill.
You're muted, Jill.
There's always someone in any meeting.
Okay. Can you hear me? Thank you, Liza.
Yeah.
I want to just take a couple of minutes to talk about the effort underway to try to bring the Uniform Collaborative Law Act to Connecticut. We collected some materials and sent to you, one of which was an article that I wrote for the newsletter for the Connecticut Council on Collaborative Divorce, non-adversarial divorce. And so just briefly, tying back to this idea of public awareness and education, more and more people, when I first started doing family law in Connecticut, very few people in my area of Connecticut were doing this. The outreach to clients has been phenomenal. And now people are coming into my office asking for it, whereas before it was really me trying to have to explain it and sell it. I still do that, but there's more awareness. But adopting the uniform rules will actually have a huge impact on public awareness of this option, number one. Number two, it will really clarify for everyone why this process is different, how it works, and most importantly, dismiss this myth that it's really just people, being collaborative and getting along. There will be rules and processes that everybody understands, which will actually bring the practice and standards up a notch. I know that professionals are clamoring to do this work. I work with professionals who are willing to do and want to do modest means work, but they don't have the clients coming in and asking for it. So there's professional awareness at the law school level. Law schools are teaching this. It's exciting. Law students are coming out wanting to do it, but they can't. There's a mismatch. There's a mismatch between the professionals wanting to do the work, the clients needing the services, and finding each other. So, we at the Connecticut Council for Non-Adversarial Divorce believe that this is a very significant opportunity that Connecticut has to not be a trailblazer, because there are 22 states that have already adopted this. It can be done in the form of statutes or rules, and that makes it, two options of paths to pursue. We're going to pursue both. The the idea is, not new, and it's been tried, and it's not, risky. It's all been vetted. And so we just need to create the momentum and build on the work that has been done already in Connecticut to use the uniform laws for mediation and arbitration. So that work is underway. Those statutes are moving through the process, and we'd like to build on that momentum to add the Collaborative Law Rules or Act. So that's it for us. We're here to answer any questions. We'd love to talk more and more about any of this with any of you. So with that, I put the floor back to Justice Khan, and thank you for your time.
So thank you so much, Attorney Bix and Dr. Thayer. That was really, for me, incredibly informative. I never did family work, either as a lawyer or had the opportunity to sit as a judge in family court. And so for me, it was really, really interesting. I know some of our commission members have questions. I can see Judge Bizzuto also has her hand up. I do want to say that very much appreciate your presentation, not only about the key components of this program, but also the piece that addresses getting folks of modest means to be able to afford this. And your work with the pilot program was really, really interesting, encouraging, and very exciting. I'm going to ask members of our commission who wish to have questions to raise their hand virtually. Turn first to Judge Bizzuto.
Thank you, Justice Khan. So really, my hat's off and big applause to you, Attorney Bix and Dr. Thayer. This is so huge because, as we all know, Collaborative has been out there for quite some time and is underutilized. And I always got the impression underutilized because it was so expensive. So offering this model to people of modest means is really just such a huge benefit to the whole arena of family law. I'm a big believer that more options to family, especially those that turn away from litigation, is just a win-win across the board. So my hat's off to you, and of course the Children's Law Center, Justine, and all her efforts at getting this off the ground. It's great. I can't wait to see how it plays out. I heard you say that you started during COVID. Do you know approximately, or when was the first case?
We started in July of last year.
Okay.
So, and that was the first one.
And how many cases have you guys had since then?
We've done about three, and there's another one or two on the way in, which is part of the issue, is getting the public to know that. And most of the cases, the first case came in actually through a private practitioner who felt that they could not afford her services and knew that we were trying to get going, and they referred the case to us, which was wonderful.
Have you addressed the bar, either the family law section or the bar in general with respect to this program?
No, I was on a talk with the bar on Collaborative, but not on the access.
Okay, because that would probably, because I was thinking the same thing. If I had a client, who came to the office, and you should, I think, explain all the options available to divorcing families, and this being one of them, and knew of the program.
Right.
Let me ask you this. If I were trained collaboratively, but not maybe one of the 50 professionals you trained, and someone came to my office and the part was interested, would I, as a lawyer, be able to bring that client and also be one of the lawyers participating in the program, or do I have to be one of the ones that you have trained already?
We just get you up to speed and help you through it. It's not that, rocket science to convert to this program. So we don't want to turn anybody down at all. And going along with what you said, Attorney Katz was saying when we were preparing for the first case, that he had cases who came in that he felt would be much better served by Collaborative, but could only provide mediation because of the cost,
right.
And it wasn't the right kind of process for that particular family. So it goes in both directions.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
And I just another quick question. Once the process starts, do you file the action in court at the beginning, or do you wait till the end, or sometime in between?
In the cases we've done so far, it's been at the end,
At the very end?
at the very end. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, one more question, just to see if other processes that are available to families are being utilized. At the end, with the agreement, did you file electronically and have it reviewed by the court, or did you actually appear before a judge physically, whether remotely or in person?
No, it was filed electronically and nobody had to appear.
So those parties never stepped foot in a courthouse and went from married to divorce?
No,
Oh,
and had already relocated by the time.
oh,
We saw the
that's just,
paperwork hang up at the end and he had relocated at the time already.
I just can't imagine families out there who
Right.
know that this is available instead of that scary thing they think about. I mean, I know it's still a difficult process, but you know, the fear and anxiety associated with going to court and certainly litigation, all the angst that provides for, if they knew of this alternative and that it was something that may be affordable to them, I can't imagine parties not at least considering it, if not in fully engaging with. So I've taken enough of your time, but really my hat's off to you guys for your work and the Children's Law Center for putting this together. I think it's fantastic. Big applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your support.
I would echo Judge Bizzuto's comment, and I'm trying to see if there are any virtual hands or any other questions. I do have some suggestions, but I'll wait until folks have questions. Question is either speak up. I'm not seeing any or virtual hands. I do want to say that this is super exciting, and I would not only agree with everything Judge Bizzuto said, you are also presenting to the right group, right? Because we have members of our commission are chairs of various work groups, including, I would highlight, the group on libraries and access to justice. And I see Attorney Dowd is here and he'll be presenting. And they do tremendous work in terms of getting the word out to our librarians about what's available for folks of modest and moderate means. And I would encourage you to reach out to them to see, work with them on what they can do. And Attorney Nelson can assist you with that. Also, the General Pro Bono work group that Judge Harmon and Attorney Ogilvie co-chair, they can also assist you on perhaps their ways. And I would ask, of course, you know, I defer to the branch. We are the commission. We're not part of court ops, but we have our court operations division and we have our external affairs division. So if there's anything that they can do within, you know, what the branch is allowed in terms of making sure the information is out there, because it sounds like you have the professionals available. You just need folks of modest means who qualify to opt in. And so I would encourage Attorney Nelson, Attorney Ferranti, Judge Diana, I noticed was on. He had logged on from vacation briefly. Yes, but to reach out to them and let them get you in touch with the chairs of the two work groups I just mentioned. I think it would be very helpful, and maybe they can assist you in your efforts to get the word out that this program is available, this pilot program, these services. Any questions? Judge Bizzuto, I noticed, has her hand up, but I believe she asked all her questions.
I don't know how to take my hand down, sorry.
That's okay, no worries. No worries. Any questions from any other members of the commission? Seeing none, again, I thank you tremendously for your presentation. I thank your work group, Attorney Nelson, Attorney Ferranti, Judge Diana, for suggesting your presentation. Incredibly helpful. We need to know these services are out there and that they are available to folks of modest means. I see Attorney Dowd shaking his head. And so I know he and his group will be a great resource. Going by the agenda, I want to give Judge Bizzuto indicated she had a scheduling conflict. She was supposed to report under other business items, and she is going to give us a brief update on remote access update. And so I'd like to ask her to report now before I get to the rest of the work groups that are reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Conant. Thank you for the consideration, taking me out of order. I appreciate it. And I'll just go through this quickly and just kind of hit on some of the things that are obviously relevant to this commission. So the first time I want to address just briefly is the remote rooms. What's referred to in the minutes from the last meeting is kiosks. We talked about a little bit last time, and I wanted to follow up and let everyone know that there are now, or is now, a remote room in all courthouse locations, including our GAs as well as our juvenile courts. They're all up and running and fully functional, and each room is equipped with the virtual hardware as well as the platform access. And those litigants without virtual access seamlessly connect to the Teams remote platform and participate in remote proceedings virtually from the safety of those remote rooms. So they're all up and running across all courthouse locations. I want to update you on the volunteer attorney program, which has been recessed during COVID. We are going to restart it in September. The folks at Court Ops, Krista and Ty, reached out to all of our volunteers and really had a very positive response to restarting that. It'll happen in September, as I said, and it will continue to be offered in all of the previous disciplines, that being foreclosure, contracts, collections, family, and small claims. And a new feature of the program is that the volunteer attorney may participate remotely from the comfort and convenience of their offices and connect with a self-represented litigant who will be using one of the remote rooms at the courthouse. And it'll be a first come, first serve basis, again, as we've always traditionally done, but they'll be able to remote in from the remote room right to the lawyer in his office. Of course, if the lawyer wants to meet in person and do it in the courthouse, that's going to be permitted as well. Our court service centers and our public information desks, and just for those people who don't know, we have 14 court service centers and 12 public information desks. And those managers and employees at those assets have been working remotely throughout COVID. They are now back in the locations, 100% on site and running at 100% in all of those locations. Housing courts. So as of June 4th, all of our housing mediators are back on site and busy doing many housing mediations. They were doing them remotely, continue to do them remotely, but from our courthouse locations. And from September of 2020 to early July, the mediators have either conducted or have scheduled 6,000 housing mediations and 1,800 foreclosure mediations. So they are obviously very busy and will continue to be quite busy as housing court moratoriums go by the wayside. And that's kind of an ever-evolving process as far as the summary, the eviction matters. And our housing team, of which Krista and Ty are very much involved, are working closely with DOH as well as Unite CT in their efforts to connect parties to the funding resources that are provided by the federal government, quite a large sum. So they're working with them to make sure that those funds are dispersed to the appropriate parties. And finally, on an update on e-filing access for self-represented litigants. This may seem like a boring topic, and it probably is a boring topic, but it really has worked out quite well from the early days of the pandemic. Knowing that most of the access then, certainly with respect to family and the civil division, was being done by electronic means. We thought there'd be a tremendous benefit by modifying and reducing kind of the rigors for a self-represented party to gain e-filing access. So we did that quite some time ago. And the response has been rather significant given the numbers that we've traditionally had. So pre-pandemic, for the first 2 quarters of 2019, there were 749 self-represented litigants who requested and were provided e-filing access. The first quarter of this year, January to the end of June, there were 1,890 self-represented litigants who requested and were provided e-filing access. That's 2.5 times the number we previously had. And we see that probably continuing into the future, and we are not going to go back to the more rigorous notary requirements and keep it kind of a little bit easier for self-represented litigants to access e-filing it, because it provides them certainly with better and more efficient access to their files and to the court process. And it also reduces visits to court and foot traffic. So it's all around it's been a positive development that we're going to continue into the future. So those were the updates relative to access that I wanted to share with you. And I thank you again, Justice Kahn, for giving me an opportunity to go out of turn since I have to leave a little bit early. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge Bizzuto. Any questions for Judge Bizzuto's presentation from anyone? Please raise your virtual hand or speak up. I see none, and I thank you, Judge Bizzuto, for your presentation. We have next on our list is the presentation from the work group on libraries and access to justice. And I will turn it over to Jeffrey Dowd, who will give that report. I just want to note at this point, we will get reports from each group and open up for questions at the end of each group. And also, I know that the appellate pro bono chairs of the appellate pro bono work group are on this meeting, those being Judge Mole, Judge Bright, Chief Judge Bright. I don't know if he's a chair, but he's certainly on it, and Attorney Sexton. And I'll turn to the three of you under the other business items if you wish to report. No pressure, but if you wish to report, I will turn to all three of you. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. I'll turn it over to Jeffrey Dowd. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I begin, I just want to say that Dawn gives her apologies. She couldn't be here today because she had a scheduling conflict. And I'll also offer Krista the chance to jump in anytime she wants. I just want to go over 3 quick things today. The first one is our progress in creating a virtual or online training program for the hands-on legal reference. The first program is already in the books, and we had a full capacity for the program. We received very positive feedback from the feedback surveys, and it was found to be very helpful. The program involved using legal scenarios that they would go to breakout rooms, the librarians would, and would try to solve those problems. And there was also a presentation on how our legal system works, how to avoid practice of law, things like that. Chris Roy, Cheryl Halford, and Ann Verjat led the training on that. The second thing is the ADA Quick Card, which Heather Collins, one of our members, helped develop, along with input from Don Laval and Maria Bernier from the State Library. We created physical versions of the Quick Card, which were distributed to the court service centers and the law libraries as handouts. And there's also an online version. If you go to the ADA page, it's the first link on the left sidebar on our homepage. That'll lead you to the ADA page where you can click on the right sidebar, which has something called quick answers to your questions. And that basically links to that PDF. And the last thing I want to go over is the public service announcements. We're still waiting to be able to record those using the right equipment in person. But in the meantime, we're working on the Know Where to Start page, which will help self-represented litigants find the information they need. And one of the things we're working on is a matrix that will show them how to access, how to zero in on the services they need, and who's best equipped to help them with their particular issue. And this has links to contact information, email links, live chat links to these various service, I'll call them service providers. Basically on the matrix, we cover the ADA, court service centers, ctlawhelp.org, jury services, law libraries, legal clinics, public information desks, limited scope representation, and volunteer attorney programs. And on the matrix, it links down to the page where the services are explained in greater detail. So that's what we've been working on recently. I don't know if Krista, if you want to add anything or not.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, hi everyone. I did want to just briefly add, Jeff and I had an opportunity on Friday afternoon to meet with Dawn Laval and just talk a little bit about the public libraries, and just for my own purposes, just to the, the state of where they were in terms of operationally. And she did let us know that all 162 library locations are in fact open. They are open for patrons for in-person services. The really, and I'm mentioning this, and I think this little piece of information touches several of the other work groups, but the thing that was of great note to me, to Jeff and I, was that the public libraries receive the ARP funding, like many of us have, the American Rescue Program funding, to create nooks, like we have our remote rooms, so little nooks within the public library spaces, confined private spaces, really for, at the time during COVID, sort of telehealth visits, and allowing folks to do that, for COVID purposes, but easily making that transition into confidential attorney-client advice sessions, volunteer attorney programs, pro bono, low bono, whatever it happens to be. It's I think a use that can be expanded. She said about 20, I think, Jeff, 20 libraries so far.
Yep.
And she's going to give us the list. I don't have it yet, but have these rooms. And so the libraries are equipped to handle kind of remote type services. So I wanted to mention that. A lot of the programming in the public libraries is largely remote at this point, although some in person has resumed. So I just think it's important for all of us, as we have our discussion about pro bono and about, all the other services, and extending the reach of the courts into the community, keeping the public libraries as a point of reference and an integral part of that process. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
So I first want to thank Jeffrey and Krista for their presentation and for this update. I do want to tell you that in addition to the ADA card, I know that your work group worked closely with our LEP committee, and we also have a LEP, stands for Limited English Proficiency, card that librarians can use to explain the services, language services that the branch provides. And they actually gave us some very helpful feedback on our card. And so I thank your work group for that as well. And I do want to encourage, if your work group can touch base with Attorney Nelson's work group, that in the presenters today, maybe that's information that we can assist them in making that available through our libraries. Any questions for the libraries in ATJ group from anyone? Again, either raise a virtual hand or speak up. Seeing none and hearing none. Again, thank you so much. The work of your work group is so critical because we all know that's where folks go. Their first entry into any place when they have a legal issue is libraries. So thank you for that really critical partnership. Next on our list is a presentation from the work group on law schools. It's my understanding that Dean Ahmad is going to present on behalf of the group, but obviously all three deans from our law schools are welcome to comment as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Khan, and for the opportunity. And yes, I'm going to present on behalf of our committee, but certainly invite Dean Brown and Dean Nelson to supplement as well. So the law schools have, since our last meeting, of course, continued to provide legal services through our clinical programs and experiential learning and externships of various kinds. Our hope is that we'll be shifting back to a fully in-person model for the fall, and so many of the adaptations that we made over the past year, some of them may well stay in place as contingencies, but we're looking forward to a time when we can be seeing our clients in person and showing up in court with our students as well in person. One of the things that came up in a conversation that I think Dean Nelson had with Justice Kahn and Judge Bizzuto was a suggestion that we look at how law schools have collaborated with access to justice commissions in other jurisdictions. And so while we haven't done a comprehensive survey, we have taken a look at the work and in particular the written reports of a number of different access to justice commissions, including in Massachusetts, the District of Columbia, California, and New York. I'll say that most of those, if they touch upon the work of law schools in relation to access to justice, it's largely descriptive of the work of law clinics and externships. There were a couple of interesting, helpful suggestions from a recent report from the New York Access to Justice Commission that we thought were worth highlighting, and which dovetail with some work that is in an early stage in the 3 law schools here in Connecticut. So the first of those 2 issues is pipeline projects, and these are projects intended to diversify the applicant pool for law schools, and therefore, medium term or long term sense to diversify the bar and the bench. And in particular, with regard to communities that are underrepresented or otherwise marginalized in the profession. These projects oftentimes will seek to increase that diversity in the pipeline through different kinds of targeted programming, internships, mentorship programs, moot courts, LSAT prep, application assistance, and so forth. I'll just flag that this also intersects with some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that is being taken on across the board. There's a project that one of my colleagues, Professor James Foreman at Yale Law School, started last year called the Access to Law School program, which is one of these pipeline projects. So what he's doing is targeting first generation low income and underrepresented students of color from in and around New Haven who are interested in pursuing a legal career. And he has paired them with law students, his law students who are running a semester-long or year-long course for a group of these 20 individuals, and then providing them one-on-one mentorship as well. Again, trying to pick up on a number of these themes of providing both substantive support for students who may have an interest in going to law school, as well as the mentorship and one-on-one guidance to help them through that process, with the goal of making them successful both as applicants to law schools and as law students. Quinnipiac is also exploring pipeline projects, including the possibility of a summer program for 2022 and a possible collaboration with Professor Foreman as well. And at UConn in the past, there have been various summer programs intended to enhance the pipeline. During this past academic year, there was a project called Envision Advocacy, which was run by 10 affinity student groups, which partnered with 7 affinity bar associations, and they worked with 37 Hartford High School students to provide guidance and assistance and mentorship to them, including a moot court exercise, again, with the goal of diversifying the pipeline. And Dean Nelson has expressed interest in looking to institutionalize that project going forward. We think this may be an area where all 3 law schools could collaborate. There's obviously we have different geographies to some extent, but a lot of the same techniques and approaches that are either have been used in the past or are being used now. As I was putting this together, I found that the ABA maintains a directory of these pipeline projects nationwide. There seem to be on their directory 3 or 4 dozen different pipeline projects, some of them run by private firms, some by bar associations, and some by law schools. So I note that it just insofar as the commission may be looking for ways to seed ideas, innovative ideas throughout the bar, including with the private bar, it may be worth keeping this in mind. There are, it seems to me, successful examples of the private bar participating in the creation and maintenance of these programs in other jurisdictions, and that may be something that we would want to encourage here as well. So that is the report then with regards to the pipeline projects. The second issue that we noted in our review of reports from other commissions from other jurisdictions, and in particular New York, was a suggestion for the need for greater support for need-based scholarships. And here we just want to flag that this is an issue that plays out differently among the 3 different law schools, and that's partially with regard to how what the overall funding is of each of the institutions, and partially it's a matter of which is the difference between public and private institutions. So Yale having the resources that it does, the law school has quite a large number of well, 2 things. One, it has need-based admissions on the front end, and 2, it has a very large number of postgraduate public interest fellowships on the back end, all of which are kind of deriving from private funding. Obviously, Quinnipiac and UConn are not in the same position, and so it kind of raises questions about where support can come, particularly for need-based scholarships, but I would put in postgraduate fellowships as well. The other issue, I guess, it raises for us is whether, and this is perhaps a discussion question more than really a presentation from our work group, is whether there can continue to be a role for the commission in advocating for public support for expanded access to justice, and whether that is through additional scholarship funds for UConn or for postgraduate fellowships for Connecticut residents. There are a variety of different forms that could take that would intersect with law schools. But I guess I would hasten to add that it's not limited to law schools. And so this legislative session, for example, saw 2 quite significant expansions of access to justice in terms of right to counsel bills that were passed and signed by the governor. So one for low-income renters facing eviction. There's now, I think Connecticut now is only the 3rd state in the country that has a right to counsel for people facing eviction. And a second was a bill that provides a right to counsel for on restraining orders for survivors of domestic violence. Both of those, the evictions and restraining order, both of those were recommendations or they fulfilled recommendations that were made by a civil access to justice task force that the legislature established some years ago, and they put out their first report in 2016. So it obviously has been kind of years in the making, but it does speak to, I think, both the space and the possibility for meaningful public advocacy to expand state-supported access to justice in the form of civil legal services or civil Gideon efforts. And we have talked previously about representation for detained immigrants as another area, one that my clinic has worked on, but that was the 3rd of 3 recommendations that the 2016 task force had for providing right to counsel. And again, it seems like there may be some space for our body to engage on these issues. So the last thing I want to say here is that some of the other Access to Justice commissions, as we were looking at their publications, are very self-consciously putting together reports for the purposes of not just documenting their work, but for the purposes of trying to influence the legislatures or public advocacy around access to justice. And that's just an observation that I think we had in looking at these reports as another way for the expertise of this body to be leveraged or deployed in a way that might support access to justice efforts more broadly.
Thank you, Dean Ahmad. And Dean Brown, Dean Nelson, do you wish to report or add anything? I know that you all elected someone to represent for your group, but I also want to give you an opportunity if you wish to add any. Yeah, all right. I want to thank Dean Ahmad. I do think, I don't want to speak for the whole commission, but certainly having concrete examples and ways in which we as a commission can assist and participate, I think that would be incredibly helpful. In terms of the two areas you covered, the pipeline projects and programs, I can certainly see how individually as commission members and even as a commission we can support that. Obviously, racial justice, which I'll talk about at the end of the reports, is a key factor of access to justice. Our current focus on at the national level. I know my alma mater, Fordham, runs a first generation program. They've asked me to speak every year to students. And I know that they have a pipeline program from undergraduate schools, from various undergraduate schools, where they bring students and acclimate them to the law school and do different things to encourage them to apply to law school. So whatever ways we can support, whether it's from the work groups or whether it's as a whole from the commission, we're delighted to do so. On the second issue, we did have that program that Chief Justice Rogers started. I know Judge Bright and Krista Hess worked tremendously on it, as did Heather Collins, and we had a few positions funded. So these were positions funded by the private corporations to fund for lawyer positions as fellows once they graduated. We had some difficulty getting the funding from the private sector. It's challenging, but if we can come up with ways to revive that or a variation of that, I don't want to speak for Chief Judge Bright and others, but I know that they were all on board. It can get challenging to get that funding, but we're certainly open to suggestions. Chief Judge Bright?
Yeah, so we started the program, it was probably, Krista helped me, maybe 10 years ago now. And we had some initial success with GE and UTC, but we had difficulty getting traction with other corporations, which was somewhat surprising to us, a little bit frustrating. And then the people at GE and UTC, I think, felt similarly somewhat frustrated despite the support they gave. And then they had some changes in the general counsel. UTC got bought by Raytheon. That changed their focus and priority. So, but I still think it's a great idea. And I think it's something that for what I think is a reasonable investment by corporations, the payoff can be fairly significant. So, is that fair, Krista?
Thank you.
That's fair. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge Bright. Thank you, Krista. I did want you both to sort of update the group on those efforts. I think I joined the commission right as that was starting to or had just been initiated. I notice I can now see Dean Nelson, and I'm not sure, Dean Nelson, did you wish to add? I could only see Dean Brown visually, but I don't want to give you all an opportunity if you wish to say anything. Please do.
Nothing to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dean Brown. Yes. You're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm new to Teams, so I'm not as adept at, thank you. I just wanted to note that I think I have observed over the years, sometimes when law schools become involved in projects and conversations like this, law students are often seen as, you know, they can learn from being involved in things. They can also provide certain services. I don't think that the law schools have been maybe tapped as much as they could be to actually provide some of the dispute resolution services that people need so desperately. And one of the things that's very exciting to observe right now is that, at least for us here at Quinnipiac, our clinic is actually working with Unite CT and has received some grant funding to actually provide mediation services in some of the homelessness prevention, housing security work. And my understanding is that the grant has been extended, and we're very excited about that. So again, I just think, as we're thinking creatively about how to make the best use of students and faculties at law schools, let's also think of them potentially as dispute resolvers as well as advocates. And I know for a little while anyway at Yale, there actually was an arbitration clinic that was providing some actual arbitration services in lemon law cases, and so I think there could be other possibilities like that. And I'd be very excited at our next meeting to tell you more about how we've been involved in the housing work at Quinnipiac.
That would be excellent. Thank you. I think that would be incredibly helpful to hear that from you, Dean Brown. And also, I would encourage, I don't know, and I don't want to speak for our experts who presented today, but Attorney Nelson and Judge Diana, who chaired the work group that brought in our presenters today, maybe there's a role for law students to learn from those training programs. And I would ask them to touch base with you and Dean Ahmad and Dean Nelson and see if there's a way, as they roll out these training programs for experts, maybe there's a role for students to participate and assist and learn in that process and get them encouraged to maybe pursue that as an area of practice. I think that would be great. So if a presentation would be wonderful in different ways in which we could revive some of these programs, including the one that Judge Bright and Krista spearheaded, I would encourage that, and we would love to work with you on it. Thank you so much for the to our deans and for the work group on law schools. Really appreciate it. We have two more presentations from the work groups. I'm mindful of time. I don't like to go over time because I know we're all busy professionals. So I want to turn to the next group, which is our general pro bono group, which is co-chaired by Judge Harmon and Attorney Ogilvie. And they do have a report for us and with some exciting information, some of which I believe Dean Ahmad alluded to earlier. Thank you. I'll turn it over to them.
Okay, sorry about that. I was on mute. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm reporting for the General Pro Bono Group. If Attorney Ogilvie also works with me on this, if she'd like to chime in at any time, please do, Attorney Ogilvie. We have had one meeting since our last group meeting in this matter. The working group did, during that meeting, take the time to review a lot of the steps that have been taken by the judicial branch over the past year that we feel worked very well in saving attorneys time by not having to travel to court via the various video services that have been provided. There's less time spent for counsel waiting for hearings and conferences, things that, you know, probably used to take an hour to get here and maybe 10 minutes and sitting in my chambers. Now they're able to do the whole thing in about 15 minutes total. And that also works out as being less expenses for the clients in that matter, because then the attorneys, supposedly, we're not sure whether they do or not, but they don't necessarily have to bill them for an entire hour during that time. So we're not sure what the attorneys are doing, but hopefully they're just billing for 15 minutes. We also took notice of the new Connecticut Bar Association President, Cecil Thomas. We'd like to congratulate him on his new role. He indicated one of his goals was the increasing more pro bono work in this matter, and insisting the CBA and creating a lot of opportunities for pro bono work in this matter, and that they had a number of work things they were putting together to allow people to have commitments that would range from 1 hour to 15 hours, and that would provide training for various attorneys who were interested in doing pro bono work in these matters. As Justice Kahn indicated, and I think Dean Ahmad, and also just we'd like to thank Dean Ahmad and Dean Nelson and Dean Brown, because it sounds like they were all instrumental in some ways or in some fashions in helping with the recent legislation that provides for additional funding for parties who may be facing evictions or homelessness. And it sounds like all the law schools were very helpful in pushing that through in one way or another. So we'd like to thank everyone for that. There is a public act that was passed that provided up to $10 million for legal representation to parties who are facing evictions. So the pro bono group was very excited about that. That's going to provide a right to counsel for parties who are covered by the representation at no cost, and allow them to hopefully not be impacted by what everyone is anticipating is going to be a large amount of actions for evictions. And we're trying to prevent a large amount of homelessness from occurring that after the pandemic has happened. So I think everyone's looking out for that. And there's been a lot of good steps taken, and there's a lot of funding. I think people touched on the United Connecticut Act and the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So there is a lot of federal funds out there. I think it's just a question of making sure that parties are aware of these funds, know how to apply for them, know how to receive them, because they're available to both the renters and to the landlords. And a lot of the instances, both parties have to apply for the funds together. So it's important that we make sure the landlords are aware that these funds are out there. The pro bono group was excited and encouraged by the legislation and feels it serves to encourage more pro bono work and provides the protection against the unwarranted evictions and relief from the devastating effects of the pandemic. We do look forward to studying and working on the other additional steps to be taken to encourage pro bono work in the coming fall. Now that we've gotten past some of the pandemic, we're looking forward to scheduling another meeting. We actually are encouraged that our next meeting that we have for the pro bono group may even actually be in person instead of via Zoom. So with that, I don't know if Attorney Ogilvie has any additional comments at this time.
I think that you covered everything. I think one topic that did come up during our discussion was, you know, as we went through the past year and talked about lessons learned from COVID, I mean, there was a strong sentiment that we also have to remember whenever we're thinking about, you know, new policies that the court will implement or new ideas, that to always, you know, not look at it just from the view of what works and what helps the attorneys or the court, but really what about our most vulnerable citizens? And there was a sentiment that we still needed to focus on that and make sure to understand that there are challenges, even with all the remote options that we have and that we may continue to employ, that there are some citizens who have still access to justice issues because they don't have the access to the technology. And everyone's cognizant that the court is trying to help in any way possible, but it's still a very real issue. And I think the work group members really wanted to make sure that we relayed that and that was always front of mind. And some even said, you know, in many instances, they have clients who actually it's better for them to be in person because it's hard for them to grasp perhaps what's going on remotely in a way that they can if they're sitting next to their attorney, if it's safe, or are near a judge. So they just offered different ways of looking at these issues and reminded us that we always have to look at it from the view also of the most vulnerable citizens and what we can do to make sure they have access.
And I know that's things, and that's a very good point, Attorney Ogilvy, but those things we've taken into account here and I know in my courtroom, in the criminal courtroom, so if parties want to come in person, I allow them to come in person. Parties want to be here, they want to be transported, they don't want to be on video from the different correction facilities. I allow them to come in person. I think we do have to be very flexible in terms of that because the experience is different for everyone. And for some people, the lack of access to technology or just the fact that they're not comfortable with the technology is a very big factor. Okay.
I think I can hear you now. You froze for a split second, Judge Harmon.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Well, I think we're back. Whatever that split second was, I guess it left me now, but thank you.
So I want to thank Judge Harmon and Attorney Ogilvy for their report. I do want to open it up for questions for their group. I do want to note that we will, with regard to each work group that mentioned certain things. So for example, the work group on libraries in ATJ, we will circulate, I'm not sure if we have already, I believe we had, but I'll check with Lauren. We'll circulate the ADA card, any kind of information we can circulate to you, to the commission members, we will after this meeting so that you have links to the information and everything that you need, including the bill that Judge Harmon and Attorney Ogilvy just reported on is Public Act number 21-34, substitute House Bill number 6531. It's a 14-page document. We will circulate it to all of you so that you can see the actual act that created these funded legal services for folks facing eviction. So it's important that you have that. I wanted to note that. I want to thank you for your report. Any questions for this work group, the General Pro Bono work group?
And there was, Justice Kahn, just to let people know, there was also a nice article in the Connecticut Mirror from the July 1st, 2021 date, which goes over the bill and explains what's being provided to the tenants who are facing eviction at that time. So it's a kind of a nice read, and it's in a little bit more of a layman's language versus attempting to read through something that's legislation or was put together by the politicians. It might be a little harder to read.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that you had sent us a copy as well, so we will definitely include the articles. There were actually two articles, I think, that you alluded to. Oh, one a Connecticut Mirror and then a subsequent smaller Connecticut Mirror article. We will circulate all of that, obviously, to the commission members. Seeing no questions, again, I want to thank the General Pro Bono group for their report. Attorney Ogilvy, your point on being flexible and keeping in mind folks and whether it's their inability to access remotely and needing to be in person. I know I saw Krista Hess shaking her head. I know Ty is on the call from court operations, as well as Judge Bizzuto had to step out, but I know that both our executive director, Ty Erickson, and court operations director and our court ops director, Krista Hess, will follow up on that. I would encourage you to share your concerns, your views, your group's views and concerns with them because it will be very helpful to them in incorporating that. And so I encourage you to have that dialogue with them. And I see Krista's in agreement, nodding. I can't see you, Ty, but I would imagine that you are as well. So thank you to your group. Okay. Thank you. I do want to turn to the next group, which is the work group on video conferencing and ATJ, access to justice. And then I'll hear from the appellate pro bono group before I report on racial justice. So the report is our amazing Krista Hess will report on what used to be called the Video Conferencing Access to Justice Group.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Justice Khan. So at the last meeting, we talked about revising the charge, and we've done so. I think it was circulated to all of you, so you've seen it. It's been reconstituted now to be more relevant, I think, as the remote access and access to justice work group. And I have to say, I mean, the charge kind of speaks for itself. But something that, what Attorney Ogilvie just said and Judge Harmon just said resonated with me a great deal. And I think, and as I said at our prior meeting, the charge of this remote access work group does touch every single other work group under this commission. And I know Karen DeMille and I have had this conversation, but our first meeting, and I've been woefully remiss in scheduling a meeting, and I'm going to. I apologize if I do repeat myself, because it's frankly never that interesting the first time, and the second time it's just really not interesting. But it is a collaborative. This is going to be a very collaborative effort for the remote access and access to justice working group. And I guess in saying that, I mean that it's, the charge says we're going to make technology more available by narrowing the digital divide by making technology more accessible. Some may argue that by promoting technology, you're really increasing the digital divide, to Attorney Ogilvie's point. I mean, some people just are inherently uncomfortable with technology, whether it's a language issue or a physical limitation, whatever that may be. And I think, and I've said this before, and again, I apologize for repeating myself, the access to justice thread of all of this is the meaningful access to justice that has to look different for every single person. And that's where I think the technology comes in. Some people want to be in person. Some folks are comfortable over the phone. Some are comfortable on video. It just has to be what works for everyone. So when I look to our libraries and I see an ability to do remote programming in our libraries for the private bar or through court teams, whatever, when you look at some ability to have a systemic overhaul of pro bono generally that includes a heavy technology component, including the local libraries and including the courts. I think that that's something that has to be explored. And when I think about technology as it relates to access to the courts and to pro bono, I start thinking more globally about, and Judge Bright may remember this, and I think Karen DeMiola was at the pro bono colloquium that we did, good gravy, back in 2015, 2016 under the Bar Foundation. We did a pro bono colloquium, and it was, how can we, increase pro bono in Connecticut, but really make it more of an ingrained institution. And it sort of came down to a couple really simple things, which is, you have to make it attractive for the lawyers. You have to, it's not just a programming thing, and make it, so you have the low, low income and moderate means, or, your truly indigent legal aid clients. You have to make the programming that's attractive for lawyers, and how can we do that? And so technology factored heavily into that, in that we talked about a single point of entry, like a match.com, where you match up, your practice area to, I would like to do, family law. I'd like to do remotely from my house. I'd like to do online. I'd like to do in person. I'd like to do clinics, whatever that may be. And then that algorithm, for lack of a better way of putting it, matches that pro bono lawyer to that practice area and to a specific program, where then training was provided. So it was a whole, but technology factored heavily into that. So when I think about the remote access, this working group, and how we touch the pro bono working group and the law schools and the libraries and every other working group, I think it has the ability to really be impactful. But it's a tremendous amount of I think sort of narrowing the scope. So you're sort of taking pieces off a little bit at a time, so it's not so overwhelming where you're kind of spinning your wheels. So for me, this working group being reconstituted is a great thing. And my first hope is that we can meet, the chairs of this work group can meet with the chairs of the other working groups, and just have a general discussion about how our respective charges overlap, and where we can complement one another, where we're not repeating, or we can remain efficient and not just duplicate efforts. So I think it's something that we can collaborate on together, and something that, I'm certainly going to schedule a meeting hopefully in the next few weeks. So I just wanted to kind of, put that out there. And again, I do not think, and I'd like to say that this predated COVID, right? So we, as you know, had the video conferencing working group long before COVID. And granted, we were moving glacially, but we were going to get there eventually. But I mean, I think this was coming regardless of the pandemic. It just sort of came a little faster now, and it looks a little bit different. But, you know, to the court's credit, to the branch's credit, to the bar's credit, we sort of have taken a step back and said, okay, how can we make technology work for us? How can we not make this a mandate to be a further impediment to access to justice? And I think we're all exactly to what Attorney Ogilvie said. It was a perfect thing to say. Technology is a tool and it's a resource, but it should not and is not the be all end all for everyone. There are some parties, some litigants for whom in person is the only thing that they can do. For other people, the thought of walking into a courthouse can be anxiety producing and no way. So I think that's something that has to factor into the whole discussion. So that's it.
That's it. So
That's it.
Krista, Krista Hess is being very modest. And so I will say it because she didn't want to say it. Basically, the work group that she chaired with others called the Video Conferencing and Access to Justice Work Group had a charge, and it had things that it was going to accomplish, and it accomplished all of them. As she mentioned, obviously at lightning speed towards the end because of COVID. And so it became clear that what they were supposed to work on has already been implemented, done, technology, et cetera, video conferencing, remote access to courts. And now it became clear in light of comments that Attorney Ogilvie mentioned that we really ought to look at, okay, now that we're sort of post-COVID, what should that video conferencing access now be, that remote access? And so her work group is now changing its title to the Remote Access and Access to Justice Work Group, which Attorney Ogilvie, I think, fits very nicely with the concerns you raised. And there is a proposed charge, which we will send to the Chief Justice, Chief Court Administrator to approve. I believe that was circulated ahead of time to all members, so you all have it. We wanted you to be aware of it, and we will be able to report at the next meeting. And Krista's group will get together. So kudos to her group, and she won't say it, but tremendous thanks to that work group and all the work they did. Thank you. Any questions for Krista Hess's group or for the now Remote Access to Justice work group? I don't see any. No one's speaking up. I will now turn to the co-chairs and members of the Appellate Pro Bono Work Group. Again, no pressure. Judge Moll, Chief Judge Bright, or Attorney Sexton, who I know is on the call as well. But if you wish to report, I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Yeah, I think Jay is going to speak first, and we just have a short report. So Jay, do you want to go ahead?
I will, although nothing I do is ever short, so I'll do my best to keep it a bit shorter. Do
I need to start the timer, Jay, and hold up a sign?
I just see my red, green, and red buttons, and I'll be fine. In any event, our subcommittee has met since the last commission meeting, and we have sort of decided to move forward on a couple of different fronts. The sort of first piece of news is that we're in the process of actively drafting a limited scope representation rule change that would be inserted into the appellate rules that would allow for limited scope representation in appeals, so that you could have limited scope representation for motion practice or for the briefing, argument, or pet cert process. So that's sort of the first thing that we're doing. We think that that's something that can move pretty quickly, and we hope to get that before the judges of the appellate court and justices of the Supreme Court in relatively short order for their review, comment, et cetera. The other thing that we're moving forward on is in terms of how we want to move forward with trying to get some sort of pro bono involvement in an appeal that's already been started. So again, this is not necessarily at the inception of an appeal, but rather if there are times when either of the courts have sort of recognized that there would be a benefit or a need for for sort of low bono or pro bono counsel to be involved. We're looking at two different paradigms for that. The first would be more akin to what the federal system does, particularly in the United States Supreme Court, where you have the court asks for an amicus brief from a friend of the court that would be more neutral and asks that appointed attorney to address an issue and then gives the parties an opportunity to respond. The sort of second paradigm would be more along the lines of when either court orders a supplemental brief, noting that there might be a list of panel attorneys from the appellate advocacy section who have volunteered to consider taking on pro bono work that they might be able to reach out to, in which case that attorney would probably be able to then just file an appearance without having to first seek permission and be able to file a supplemental brief on behalf of party, that sort of thing. Those are, that's sort of where we're sort of focusing right now. We're doing a little research on both of the different paradigms to see what we think would work best, particularly given some of the different focuses of the two courts, the appellate court, which is more of a sort of court of errors, versus the Supreme Court, which is more court of last resort. So I think that that's sort of where we are right now. And we hope to have more on both fronts for you at the next commission meeting. And obviously, if I've missed anything, I encourage Judge Mall or Judge Bright to jump in and correct me.
I'll just add one quick thing, which is, often when we think about access to justice issues, we sort of limit our thinking at the Superior Court level. We think about individuals, first entree and interactions with the trial courts. But I've said the statistic before, I'll repeat it. Many of you have heard me say this before. Roughly 35% of all of the appeals filed at the appellate court involve at least one self-represented party. And that is really a staggering number in my view. So it's a real issue, not only at the trial level.
I agree. I have nothing else. So thank you, Jay and Judge Mall.
Thank you, Attorney Sexton, Judge Mall, and Chief Judge Bright. And it's very exciting to hear you're working on this rule, because I know you had reported earlier that that was part of the problem, right, in moving forward with some of the pilot programs allowing for limited scope, was to have the rules changed. So that's really exciting to hear, and wish you full speed ahead. I hope that happens. I'm sure it will. We have the three of you behind it. So thank you so much. Questions for the appellate pro bono group from anyone? Okay, seeing none. I again thank the appellate pro bono group. Thank every work group. We have a couple of items left very briefly, and we are on time, which I think is great. I do want to just, as an overall follow-up, I think not only is it important to hear from the speakers we heard today, I think it informs our work groups, our commission members. I know all of you are on this call. I could not identify each one of you. It sometimes could take 15 minutes to have everyone introduce themselves, but I know you all know each other and you know what work groups you're on. And so I ask each work group chair and their members to reach out to Attorney Nelson, Attorney Diana, and see if there are ways that we can assist in getting the word out about that pilot program we heard about today and those services. The law school group, is there a way that law students can participate, which would be, I think, a win-win for all the law schools and the law students? And so I ask that work group and its members to think about ways they can assist, as well as all the other work groups. I ask our general pro bono work group to work with the new remote access work group and give them suggestions and ideas that you're coming across. I asked the library work group, the law school work group, to come up with, if you think of ways which the law schools can assist in reinvigorating that lawyer, I think it was Lawyers for Connecticut or I think was the title that Chief Justice Rogers and Judge Bright and Krista Hess came up with. I know I got the title wrong, but basically getting private funding for law students graduating law school to get these fellowships to do work, pro bono and modest means work. If we could get that or a variation of that program underway and work on it concretely, I know you can learn, we can learn a lot from the lessons of the efforts that Chief Judge Bright and Krista Hess and others put into getting that program off the ground, and where they encountered stumbling blocks and how we can work together. So I would ask if there's a way that you can collaborate on that. That would be great. I do have a very brief report on the National Access to Justice Commission's front, specifically the Racial Justice Working Group that I co-chair with Judge Mark Uhas of California. As you know, we have a program every other month. I know Attorney Ogilvie joined us for the last one. I know that regulars from our commission are Judge Bizzuto, Ty Erickson, Krista Hess, and Stacy was attending, and now Lauren will be. All of you are invited. I will share the link and information and the content of the agenda. Our next meeting will be July 26th, virtually from 3 to 4 o'clock. So 3 o'clock Eastern time here, and I'll send you the information. We focus on a different aspect of racial justice and access to justice at each meeting. So that is all I have to report on that. I do want to open up. We have 12 minutes left for any other business, news items, any information that any members want to share or inquire about. Anyone, again, either speak up or raise your virtual hand. Seeing none, I will ask Lauren Orlowski, our incredible new staff member on the commission, to speak with you about our next meeting. Again, I think it's important that we end the meeting with setting up the next meeting so everyone has it. They can reserve the date on their calendars. And this doesn't mean our work ends here and we only pick it up 3 months from now. Again, I will probably follow up with work group chairs on connecting and seeing ways in which we can help each other. Lauren?
Thank you, Justice Khan. So I think we're looking about 4 months out for our next meeting, and I have some proposed dates, and I'll feel everyone out and see what would work best. We are looking at, for our next meeting, and I believe this will still be held remotely, first week in November, with the exception of Tuesday, the 2nd. So that would leave Monday the 1st, Wednesday the 3rd, Thursday the 4th, or Friday, November 5th available. I guess I could, in figuring out what's best for everyone. Does anyone have a conflict with Monday the 1st? We can start, yeah, Monday the 1st. We can start there.
Can I suggest something?
Sure.
Can we do like one of the surveys, the doodle things that go out that say, please respond, letting us know what your availability is on the following dates, and then everybody can respond to that?
I don't know if we have the technology for that. I know I've received those. They're quite helpful from the National ATJC. Do we, Lauren?
I don't personally have knowledge of that, but I'm also happy to just send out an email and people can respond to me with what their availability is, and I can figure it out from there also.
So I see several hands up. I see only 2, Attorney Sexton and Attorney Nelson, and Dean Nelson, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say quickly, it is built into the Office 365 product. So to the extent that that's what the branch has, there is that functionality that's built in, and if the branch can't access it, I'd be happy to send one out. In Microsoft terms, it's called Find Time, and it should just be like a little app that is that is built right into Outlook for you.
Okay. So, Dean Nelson.
Yes, I was just going to recommend doodle.com, which is a free kind of survey I think that Judge Bright was talking about. So it's pretty user friendly, but if the bar has a mechanism, you can do that too. But it's pretty simple. You get a link and you just send the link and everybody fills out the survey. You
So
just put in the times that you're suggesting, and then people can fill in their availability from there, and it's free.
So I do have, thank you, Dean Nelson, and thank you, Attorney Sexton. We'll figure out a way to do it, but I've always found with a group this large, sometimes it's easier to just pick a date, but also discuss it in terms of the days of the week that tend to be better for folks. I know Monday used to be short calendar, and we have several attorney members. But if we do a 2 to 4 o'clock, that generally, if folks are in court in the morning, that should free up their time. Am I correct or incorrect in that assessment? That the 2 to 4 o'clock tends to be the better time frame. I'm hoping, if you disagree, raise your virtual hand. But if you don't disagree, then I'm assuming everyone agrees the 2 to 4 o'clock is a better time frame for all of us, because we can get work done in the morning. Yes, Dean Brown.
I will be teaching every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. So
all right,
that just won't work for me.
All right. So why don't we? So the dates we have are Wednesday the 3rd, the 4th, or the 5th. We could try to avoid a Friday. I would think most folks would want to do that. So I'm seeing some nodding heads. So why don't we go with the 3rd and the 4th in the afternoon? We'll send that out. I ask, because it's so far in advance, I ask folks to just save those two for now. We'll try the doodle.com approach, but I ask that you keep if you can, to please keep your schedule open for those 2 hours. And then obviously we'll pick the date, either that Wednesday or Thursday that folks have the least conflict. Does that seem reasonable to everyone? Yes. Okay, great. So I want to again thank all our members, commission members, all our work group chairs. I want to thank Dr. Thayer and Attorney Hicks. I don't know if they have, waited this long to stay with us. I don't blame them if they had other things, but I want to thank them for that incredible presentation, for all the reports, for all the work that all of you do. And I think we have some exciting ideas and projects that we're hopefully going to work on together. And unless there's anything anyone wants to raise, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Lauren, anything I've missed? Krista or Ty, anything I've missed?
Nope. You covered everything, Your Honor.
And again, many, many thanks to Lauren for taking on this as an extra job on top of her full-time job, and Krista and Ty and Judge Bizzuto, I know, has left us. Really couldn't do any of this without them. And many, many thanks, Lauren. And motion to adjourn. Anyone?
So moved.
I would say Attorney Ogilvie moved, Judge Bright and Dean Brown second that. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Justice Khan.
Bye.
Bye-bye.